Okay, this video is advice for first-year medical students and for pre-meds that are interested in going to medical school. Many of them have asked me to make a video about it. Many years ago, I wrote a book, Medical Students Guide to Top Board Scores. All right, here we go. Rule number one, get used to teaching yourself. The medical schools put their worst professors to teach the first-year students. And these are guys that are no longer capable of doing significant clinical research or clinical work, so they just punish them by making them teach the first years. No one cares about first-year medical students. You're the lowlifes of the entire system, and that's because they know you're eager to be there. They know you've paid full tuition. They've got more than enough applicants, so they have no incentive to be nice to you or to help you. They're going to make you study your ass off. It's information overload. It's like drinking water from a fire hose. It's about the same as college in terms of the difficulty, maybe even easier than college. There's nothing like calculus in medical school. However, there's just more homework. They keep you very busy. The standard mood of a medical student is kind of lonely and kind of sad. Okay, you just become like a machine for studying. All right, and like I said, the professors get better in the second year. As a matter of fact, every year of med school gets better from the first year to the fourth year. First year is kind of boring because you basically repeat a lot of college or college level subjects in basic science. Okay. Second year, you start learning about the diseases, and that gets it more interesting. And they'll usually have some professors, pathologists from the local medical system or university to give you lectures. And they're a lot smarter and more clinically orientated, which makes it more fun. It's fun to learn about things that are clinically relevant, more so than basic science. Okay, but you'll never meet anybody like me in medical school. They want, conventional professors. They want conventional attitude students. They don't like geniuses like me. We're not welcome in the conventional medical system, okay? Even though I'm a minority, okay? I'm half Puerto Rican with an off-the-boat mother. They don't want people like me. They want obedient, affirmative action minority puppets. They don't like maverick genius nonconformists like me, okay? That's another reason why your med school professors are so painfully boring. Okay, let's see what else. Your first year subjects, basic science, anatomy, like with cadaver lab, which I think is totally retarded. You sit there inhaling formaldehyde, 5 medical students to 1 body. You can't see anything. I refuse to go. I went the first day and I said, this is effing bullshit. I'm not going to smell this crap. I can't see a damn thing. This is a waste of my time. I just ditched it every single day. And then we had a clinical practical. It's much easier to learn anatomy from a book or from, CAT scans and MRIs and x-rays. You don't need cadaver lab at all. It's totally frickin' stupid. And I'm an imaging guided surgeon and a high specialty trained, Harvard trained physician, including in diagnostic radiology, interventional radiology, neuroradiology, okay? The highest level of anatomy, okay? And I'm telling you, cadaver lab is BS. So all I did when I was a medical student is I just went to one of the professors dissected out the body, put labels on everything, and they had that body available the day before the practical test where you had to identify stuff on the body. So I just went to that, knew it all from the books, and I crushed it. Okay, I got like the highest grade in the class. The lab's a waste of time inhaling that crap. Let's see, what are the other classes in first year medical school? Neuroanatomy, they go into incredible detail. They don't teach you the basics, but they go into incredible detail. If you want to learn the basics, watch my videos, okay? Okay. You'll freak out at the contrast between somebody like me compared to your average medical school professor. I got an academic IQ of about 175, okay? The average doctor has an IQ of about 120, okay? And they have average study skills. So you really want to learn study skills because it bumps up your IQ, The average medical student, like I said, IQ about 120, average study skills. If you improve your medical school, so it's like adding about 15 IQ points at this stage in the game, so you become much better. You might as well do it. It obviously makes sense. You will learn faster. You'll have more time freed up for yourself. Okay, what else is taught first year of medical school? Histology, looking at stuff under a microscope. You don't need to look in a microscope, but you just need to know the pictures from the book. Physiology, biochemistry. Biochemistry is the most difficult subject for most students, okay? I had like the highest score in the whole United States on my boards in biochemistry, okay? I crushed it. I love biochemistry. To me, biochemistry is a language of God that he uses to write the book of life. I thought it was beautiful. Okay, psychology, statistics. Statistics is a joke. Psychology is a joke. You could compare to your other subject. You could read that while you're half asleep. Statistics is just a little bit of nonsense. You play along. Public health is sort of wimpy, watered down nonsense. Medical ethics is the biggest joke, okay? Medical ethics in a medical school is like an oxymoron. They give you a lecture in medical ethics, and after that, you go to the clinical wards where they bump off babies and euthanize old people. So, what medical ethics really means is shut your mouth and do as you are told. Medicine's very hierarchical. You have to salute the rank above you and just do as you are told, and it's best to keep your mouth shut, because it is the way it is. Medical school is trade school. It's a business, and the main part of the business is to sell drugs, okay? So don't get in the way of that. Medical school trains you to be an internal medicine doctor, basically, and to sell drugs. All the other specialty stuff, you learn that later if you choose to do a specialty. Like if you want to learn radiology, dermatology, ophthalmology, surgery, any of that stuff, you will learn that in residency. You do not learn that in medical school, okay? What else to say about medical school? Most medical schools are in bad neighborhoods. So what that means is there's zero social life. Everyone's just scared to go off the medical campus. You're afraid you're going to get, assaulted, okay? They're in shithole ghetto neighborhoods, okay? They're terrible places, okay? Just to maintain your sanity, usually on the medical school campus there'll be a gym where you can exercise, or some people will commute and drive back home. You need to get some exercise, you need to get some sleep, you need to have some social interactions with either your family or some friends or some type of social life. Not much, but at least a little bit, so that you don't go insane and burn out, okay? You're going to go to class for about half the day typically, and you spend the rest of the day studying on your own. They sometimes give you little mini clinical experiences your first and second year, but they're always a joke. You're just supposed to go there, shut your mouth, and do as you're told. You're going to be looking out the window like a kid in grade school waiting for recess. You're going to see your other friends that seem to be having so much fun. They're married, they're having kids, they're doing all these things that seem like they have a regular life. But that is not for you, not yet. You got to study, study, study. And it's actually a bigger deal for females than for men. Okay, that's because the female SMV, sexual market value, peaks at about 18 to 24 years old. So the older she gets, the farther she gets along in her medical training, the less attractive she becomes to men. Okay, especially once she's over 30, she starts hitting the wall. So she has to more quickly, because her fertility is running out. Fertility takes a big drop in the mid-30s. So she's going to have to look a little harder to find a potential spouse or even think about having kids. I think it's good for a woman to have children during residency. No one gives a rat's ass if you take off time during residency. But when you first get a job, you're trying to make partner in a private practice group. Most people will go into private practice rather than academics. They don't want you taking off so much time. So you do it in residency, there's more people around to cover for you, okay? All right, let's see, what else? And there's an old saying too, higher a woman's academic IQ, the lower her reproductive IQ, okay? Like I dated this gorgeous lady doctor, she ended up at Harvard, and she just wanted me to teach her. I was basically her teacher. I was a little older than her. And I broke up with her because she only wanted to have 1 or 2 kids and wait till she was done with fellowship. I said, see you later, alligator. She ended up having fertility problems, and I spoke to her once. She, in her 40s, ended up having to do in vitro fertilization, a big mess, a big expensive mess. She was a turbocharger fox. She was actually fun to talk to, but, kind of crazy. Male SMV peaks around 42 years of age. So the guy has a lot more time and options as far as choosing a woman as he gets older. And the male, his SMV just keeps going up, 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 okay? The same woman that wouldn't even speak to him when he was when he's in college or first year medical students, she'll kiss his feet when he is a senior medical student, intern and stuff. So women start throwing themselves at the male doctors once they get into the last year of med school and they get into residency and stuff. It's very easy for a male doctor resident or attending physician to get a woman, okay? Women love doctors, like they said, they love surgeons because the surgeon's always working, and then the female gets to spend all his money, and if he pisses her off, she can divorce him, okay? So the big pitfall for the male doctor is watching out for divorce. It's where they often get robbed of more than half of the money they ever made. Okay, second year of medical school is drugs and diseases. That means microbiology is the infections you learn about. That goes right with pharmacology. We call it bugs and drugs, microbiology and pharmacology, bugs and drugs. It's relatively binary, sort of stimulus response. Okay, for this bacteria, treat with this antibiotic. For this bacteria, treat with this antibiotic. Okay. So it's good to use flashcards and have Leitner boxes with a spaced interval repetition system for those subjects. Immunology is usually combined with microbiology, but the main subject of the second year is pathology. And like I said, pathology professors tend to be better. Pathology was my favorite class of the second year. It's very interesting. That's where you really learn the diseases. Third year is a big improvement on life. Then at the end of the second year, you take your boards, which is a big pain in the ass. You need to basically think of your midterms as just the beginning of the whole process during your first year classes. The finals are like a midterm for boards. Okay, boards is more important, and it used to be considered highly important for determining what residency you could get into. Okay. Third year, you do required clerkships, which are usually like primary care stuff. Typically things like internal medicine, general surgery, OB-GYN, and pediatrics. Okay, it's okay. Like I said, your social status, your SMV is increasing. Okay, for the guys, the nurses will start flirting with you, but the nurses at the university hospitals are too old. You don't want them. Finally, a little bit of social interaction in your lonely life. Fourth year gets a lot better. Fourth year, you have more free time. You do elective clerkships, or sometimes they'll call them sub-internships, in whatever you want, so you can have a little bit of experience to help you pick a field for residency. It can be helpful to go do a visiting clerkship at a hospital where you want to do residency. So the next question is, how do you get ahead in academics? Like I said, you want to learn study skills, okay? Study during vacations. If you're behind and you want to move up in class rank, study during vacations. In general, outline format books are better than prose books. Short books are better than long books. The long books tend to have way too much extraneous information. They're too verbose. They're hard to study from. You don't want them. I always use short books. I was first in my class, 99% board scores. Question books are highly valuable. You should have some question books for every class. I would have at least two question books, typically two question books for every class. Because what do you have to do on boards and on your final exam? You have to answer questions. For your regular school classes, the highest yield material will be whatever was covered in lectures, and the professors often tell you what you need to know for their test. However, for boards, they're sort of like generic stuff that everybody needs to know, the so-called high yield information. Like I said, I wrote a book, Medical Student's Guide to Top Board Scores, back in the 1990s, but the first aid for the boards, they did a better job than me. I was too busy with residency to make any second edition. They continually updated their books, so that was the most popular books for students to prepare for boards last time I checked. I don't know if there's some new book along. I haven't kept track of that aspect of it. I'm an old guy. I'm 63 years old, okay? I'm not some little spring chicken baby medical student here, okay? Let's see, what else? How should you behave? Most medical schools basically want their students to shut their mouth, be quiet, and be professional. Like I said, it's very hierarchical. You salute the rank above you. When you're a junior medical student, you're just low man on the totem pole, okay? Then the ranking system in residency. There's an intern, then above that is a junior resident, above that is a senior resident, above that is the chief resident, above that is the junior attending, above that is the senior attending, above that is the chief of the department. Okay, it's very hierarchical. And so the higher ups, the main thing they want is you to make them look good and you to help them go home on time. Okay. Let's see, what else is worth knowing? It's a business, okay? And the main thing the business does is make money by selling drugs. It also sells X-ray imaging tests. It also sells surgeries, colonoscopies, blood tests, all that stuff. And there's all these standard protocols which come from big universities, and you're expected to follow them. The standard of care is based on the assumption that the patient's demented or intoxicated and unable to do anything for themselves. So they all get the standard of care. And there's something good about that. But I'm going to tell you a little secret. And here's the secret. If the patient is intelligent, with it, and motivated, a lot of times they can improve their outcomes by doing things for themselves, like improving their diet, getting their sleep, getting their exercise, getting sunshine, etc. But you're not going to learn about that in medical school. You'll learn about that later on your own. Okay, the way a doctor is perceived, in a sense, by the public is, imagine you see an advertisement to sell a car, okay? There'll be a pretty lady dressed provocatively next to the car, and the idea is, gee, if you buy the car, you get her too. And what I'm trying to say is, the serious professionalism and all the hard work of the medical students is part of getting the public to buy into the system, the conventional system. The public thinks, oh, medical doctors are the smartest people in the world, and they're so hardworking and good and professional, and they know so much. So what I'm trying to say is, you're expected to act the part, be professional, don't talk very much, keep your mouth shut, play along with the system and do what they tell you to. You have to kind of do that to get along with the system. And what I'm trying to say is, you're going to notice at medical school there's not much social life, there's not much conversation, everybody's kind of weak and wimpy and fake. It'll be rare to speak to anybody who's outspoken and honest and tells the truth about stuff. So what I'm trying to say is, don't expect to find love at med school. And there's another saying, don't SHIT where you work, okay? So be very careful. You don't want to date like a co-resident, or you don't want to date a nurse who works right in the field that you want to specialize in, because most relationships go sour and you break up, and the woman's going to have a hissy fit and she's going to say you used her, you were a jerk, or something like that. So keep your romance separate from your clinical rotations, okay? Let's see, what else can I tell you? What field should you choose for residency? Well, I made an entirely separate video about that, so you can watch that video. Let's see, what else do I got to tell you? And other topics like nutrition, epidemiology, toxicology, lifestyle, you'll learn that later on your own. So anyways, I hope this will be helpful to you, and good luck with your medical studies.